Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here and I'm so glad you clicked on today's video. We are going to be talking about all the books I read in the month of September as well as all the books I am hoping to read in the month of October. As I'm sure you guys can already guess, yes, I have a very ambitious TBR for the month of October. I just can't help myself. I have so many fun fantasy and cozy romances that I would just love to read in the month of October. They're perfect for the fall season, they're perfect for cozy season. I don't really have any like spooky mystery thrillers in the pile. I did have a few on my TBR for last month and I read 2 and I feel like that's enough. I don't have a lot of mystery thrillers in the pile. They're more so fantasy books, romances, cozy fall books, stuff like that. But to start off, we're going to talk about the books that I read in the month of September. I did not read that many books in the month of September, mainly because I was just feeling very overwhelmed. I was feeling very homesick. September was a really rough month for me overall, so I just didn't really pick up my books a lot, but I did play a lot of video games. We played lots of Zelda in the month of September and it is continuing into the month of October. I just picked up the new Zelda game, which is Echoes of Wisdom. I am so excited to play that game. Anyways, we are going to talk about the few books that I did read in the month of September. We're going to start off with the book that I DNF'd. I don't ever DNF books. Even if I'm not really enjoying a book, I usually push myself to finish it because I don't know what it is. I don't like starting things and not finishing them. In the month of September, I hit my breaking point and I DNF'd my first book ever, which is absolutely crazy. I never thought the day would come. And so many of you have been asking me, sending DMs, what book did you DNF? Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. I started this book in the month of September and I got to about page 150, 160. I couldn't do it, guys. I guess I'm just too weak. I don't know what to say. I just really did not like this book. Even from the beginning, I was kind of having like weird feelings about it. This does talk about a lot of very serious, sensitive topics, but I feel like at the same time, it was contradicting itself a lot. I didn't like it. I thought the whole thing was really messed up. Going into it, I kind of knew. It kind of comes with the territory. You know what you're getting into if you pick this book up. We got to page 150 and I could not read the rest of that chapter. It was so disturbing on so many levels. And I'd really like to think that I do enjoy dark romance because I love the Brutal Birthright series, stuff like that, but this was just a little bit too dark for me and a little bit too twisted. With that being said though, there are a lot of things talked about in the beginning of this book that kind of set the whole storyline up, set a big mystery up. So when I decided to DNF this book, I immediately ran to Google to basically look up how it ends and basically look up all the spoilers for it because I just had so many questions about it. I got lost in a rabbit hole reading spoilers about this entire series because yes, I did look up book 2. I'm very happy I DNF'd this book. I think it is not for the weak. I think it's something that would have really honestly traumatized me. I'm definitely one of those people who views reading as a way to escape the real world for a few hours, whatever it may be. So picking up a book and jumping into something so dark and scary, it just wasn't what I really wanted. So Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton, it is the first book I have ever officially DNF'd. It's a book that I just could not get through. Next up, we have Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is actually a reread. I did read it in August when it came out, and then it was my book club pick in September, so I ended up rereading it with my book club. You guys know, if you saw last month's wrap up, this was 5 stars. I loved it. I think it's such a cute, mushy, fluffy romance. I love Hannah Grace as an author because she's just known for writing really cutesy, fluffy romances. I see a lot of people say that they don't really like her writing because there's never anything super crazy happening in it, but for me personally, that's why I enjoy her romances, because there's not a lot of major conflicts or crazy bad things that happen in them. Usually the plot twists that happen in her books aren't the craziest or worst things ever, but Daydream by far is probably her cutest, fluffiest romance. I think book 1 and book 2 definitely, especially when it comes to spice, they were higher on the spice scale. I feel like there's a little bit more conflict in those books, a little bit more craziness, but in Daydream, I think it was the complete completely opposite. You don't get a lot of spice. It's not the main point of the story, and you're more so spending the entire story just getting to know your two main characters, watching them turn into friends and then turn into lovers. I think the friendship between our two main characters in this book is absolutely adorable. Our MMC in this is Henry, and he's kind of dealing with a lot at the time because he's the newly hockey captain at his school. He's also put in a class that he struggles with a lot, and it's actually how him and Hallie, our FMC, end up kind of getting together. They end up coming up with a cute little tutoring arrangement where in exchange for Hallie helping Henry, Henry is providing Hallie with fun new experiences that she can kind of use to write a book that she's working on. Our FMC in this, Hallie, is the biggest book lover. She's a Swiftie, and she's just the sweetest and most wholesome FMC I think I've read about in a really long time. Their whole relationship throughout the story, though, it's just so sweet and gentle. I feel like Henry says the most perfect things any book boyfriend has ever said. They both struggle with their own problems in the book, and the patience that they have with one another I think is so sweet because you don't always see that in books or even real life. A lot of the time people get frustrated with other people super easily, and in this book they both are just so patient. The things they do for one another, they're very thoughtful and caring, and again, like, Hannah Grace is just known for writing really cute fluffy romances. I find that her books are really great books to pick up if I'm in need of like a break from all the craziness. I feel like picking up a Hannah Grace book afterwards to kind of refresh is just so nice. Then I picked up The Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas. This was a fun little YA thriller mystery. This book very much reminded me of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It was kind of a similar idea and story. Basically, 5 years ago, a group of cheerleaders from Sunnybrook High School all started kind of going missing, trickling off the map. There were car accidents and murders, and our FMC in this book, Monica, her older sister, was one of the cheerleaders who sadly disappeared 5 years ago. What I really liked about this book is that you jump between the present time and the past time. You basically jump between the different points of views of the cheerleaders and other people and what happened during the nights of the murders, the accidents, all that craziness. Basically, Monica, 5 years later, she comes across something that kind of brings back all the memories, and she starts digging in to the murders and disappearances because she's beginning to think that the person who did it didn't really do it. Very similar to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Pip in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder has a similar storyline where she doesn't believe the person who was convicted of the murders actually did it. She believes someone else did. In this book, Monica starts investigating, looking around, asking people, and that's basically the whole storyline. There's a lot of crazy plot twists in here. I definitely was on the edge of my seat when I was reading it, but at the end I did end up rating it 3.5 stars. I thought the story was really cool and I liked the whole premise of it, but in my opinion, I just feel like at times it was super confusing the way that the author kind of wrote the time jumps. I just felt really lost at times, and I would get confused and tripped up on what character we were following or what time period we were in. Sometimes I think it was just a little bit unorganized in my opinion. And then there's also a lot of things that are kind of brought up in this book that we don't get closure on, and I just thought that was super weird. That was what kind of brought it down to a 3.5 for me. And overall, I just thought that it was kind of lacking certain things, but it was a really cool storyline. I did think it was interesting. It did very much remind me of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and maybe because I loved that book so much, this one just fell a little flat for me. Overall, I thought the storyline was super interesting. The fact that it revolved around cheerleaders and them going missing. The book that follows this one is The Champions, and it actually revolves around the football team. Even though this book fell a little flat for me, I still very much want to pick up the next book and see what the football team kind of has to do with everything. The last book I read in September is The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hilderbrand. This ended up being 4 stars for me, and it was so much fun. I was actually super surprised with how much I enjoyed the book. When I was reading it, I was also watching the show on Netflix, and I thought it was such a fun experience to be reading the chapters and then watching the show. There were a lot of things that they changed in the show and that they kind of left out, so I'm happy I was also reading the book along with it because then I had those extra details and a better understanding. But I honestly think the book and the show are absolutely incredible. I could not recommend them enough. It's basically a wedding that's happening in Nantucket, and the night before the wedding, our maid of honor, let's just say the next morning they find her on the beach, not alive. The whole book revolves around that. No one knows if she was murdered or if it was an accident or if it's something she did herself. And the entire story is jumping between past and present. You're jumping between every character's point of view from the night prior, what they had to do with her, if they were around her when it happened. And it was so crazy and chaotic. And honestly, I read this book before I read The Cheerleaders, and I think that's another reason why I rated The Cheerleaders so low, because in The Perfect Couple, we're jumping between multiple characters, multiple time periods, and all this different stuff is happening, but I never really found myself getting lost or confused. I feel like it was a really fun and easy story to keep up with, and it was also really crazy. I was very into that story, which is super rare because I don't read mystery thrillers often. Perfect Couple was super fun. It was giving off all the beachy summery vibes, so I don't know if I would recommend it for the fall time just because it does take place on Nantucket, but all the crazy stuff that happens in it, the plot twist, I was just like floored by the end of it, and it was a really good mystery in my opinion. The way that the author wrote the story, she really makes you think that everybody was a part of it, and it was just such a crazy story. Those were the only books I read in the month of September though. It was a super easygoing, slow reading month for me. But now we're gonna jump in to all the books that I want to read in the month of October. It's pretty ambitious, but it's not as big as my September TBR. I think in September my TBR was way too big, so I actually kept October's TBR to 13 books. I think last month I had a total of like 20 something books, which is absolutely insane. That would be me reading a book every single day in the month of September. I'm sorry, that would just be disturbing my peace. So we have 13 books for the month of October. They're all very cozy, fun little romance reads. We have the few occasional fantasies in here. Yeah, I'm super excited. First up, we have Business Casual by B.K. Borson. I thought this would be perfect to pick up in the month of October because this is more of a cozy fall romance read. Hardcover is literally October, guys. This is October as a book. I think it is absolutely stunning. The inside artwork is so adorable. A buttoned up chino wearing corporate man, an unattainable tattoo artist who's easily distracted, a small town of meddling friends and enough tension to set both their hearts on fire. Charlie Milford is a betting man. He has to be in his line of work. He knows when to play close to the chest and when to go all in. Nova Porter is about to expand her homegrown tattoo business and doesn't have time for distraction. Charlie is definitely a distraction. Keeping things casual has never been such a hard work, especially when you live in a meddling small town like Inglewild. This is a cute, cozy fall romance. I think it's going to be perfect to read this October. I also just love this cover. I'm literally obsessed with this, like all the pumpkins and fall leaves. Next we have Saving Six by Chloe Walsh. This is book 3 in the Boys of Tommen series, and it's all about Joey. I cannot even begin to explain how frustrated I am with myself. I started this book back in the springtime right after I finished Keeping 13. I actually made it halfway through this book, and I think I was just getting a little bit too overwhelmed with it because these are on the heavier side. I put the book down and I never picked it back up. There's no possible way that I remember the beginning half of this book either, so I am going to try and reread this in the month of October and actually try and finish it this time because it has been a few months since I picked this series up, and the first 2 books in the Boys of Tommen just wrecked me. They were absolutely incredible, but they wrecked me in the best way possible. If you're not familiar with this series, they're super emotional. They touch on really sad and heavy topics, but what I really enjoyed about book 1 and book 2 is that they touched on real life heavy topics that happen to people all around the world, and they were books that I really connected with. So I think jumping right into book 3 after book 2, it was just too soon. Like I needed to take a break and like a refresher from it. Now we are hopping back into this series. I hear a lot of people say that they love Joey's story the most. Book 3 and book 4 are all about Joey and Aoife. You kind of watch them fall in love with one another and then get torn apart from one another. And in between it all, they're both going through really heavy, crazy things at home. I just know I'm gonna sob reading this book, but luckily it's on the smaller side, whereas book 1 and book 2 were like 600 something pages. Those books destroyed me, but I love them. How does that even make sense? Next up we have Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. This is book 2 in the Rose Hill series, and I actually had this on my TBR for last last month, but I kind of put it off because it sounded very similar to book 2 in Lauren Asher's series, which was Love Unwritten, and I just didn't really like that book. I thought it really dragged on and was super boring at times. So I have been really nervous to jump into this because it sounds like a very similar storyline. It's a small town romance between a single dad and basically a musician. In Lauren Asher's book, the music aspect of it was very overpowering, and I feel like it was the entire story, which is totally fine, but I just found myself getting super bored with it, and that's why I'm kind of nervous for this one. But this is all about Weston and Skylar. Weston is a single dad living in Rose Hill, and in this book, Skylar basically comes to Rose Hill to write a new album, and while she's there, she ends up running into Weston. Even though I'm a little nervous about it because the storyline sounds so similar to Love Unwritten, I'm still really excited to try it out because Elsie Silver is like one of my favorite authors. Usually her writing style is super fun and fast-paced for me. If you've read this book, what did you think about it? Next up, we have Howl's Moving Castle. I'm so excited about this. I just got it in the mail a few days ago, and I have always wanted to read this book. A few years ago, I actually watched the film for it and fell madly in love. It is such a beautiful, heartfelt, touching film, and I had no idea it was actually based on a book. So when I found out about it, Fairy Lou actually came out with a special edition, and I immediately jumped on it because it's a book that I've always wanted to read, and again, I just love the film so much. But this is a gorgeous, gorgeous edition. I love the printed edges that Fairy Lou did. The details at the bottom here are two main characters. I just think it is so cute. Our FMC in this is Sophie, and she basically gets a curse placed on her. After that, Sophie decides to travel to the moving castle in the hills where our MMC lives, Wizard Howl. Sophie believes that he is her only hope in breaking the curse and being free, but what she doesn't know is there's a lot of consequences and things that kind of come with it. I'm so excited about this because I love the film so much, and usually when there's books that are made into films or TV shows, they leave so much out. So I'm super excited to read this and maybe see all the things that they left out in the movie. Then we have Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is a brand new release. It's the follow-up to Better Than the Movies. We're following Liz and Wes off to college and basically watching them navigate life after high school, after living next door to one another their entire lives. Now all this crazy stuff is happening and changing so quickly for them. I'm honestly so excited for it because not only was Better Than the Movie such an incredible, beautiful read, I just know this one is going to be just as amazing. We're watching these two kids who are madly in love kind of go off into new chapters of their lives. It's obviously very scary. Life changes so fast. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they navigate it. Liz and Wes are probably one of my favorite book couples. Next, we have The Pumpkin Spice Cafe and the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. These are by Lori Gilmore, and they're basically like the it books of fall time. Everyone is talking about them, raving about them. I mean, look at these covers, guys. These books are literally made for the fall time. They take place in the fall time. They're cute, spicy, small town romances, and everyone basically says that if you love the Gilmore Girls, if you love Stars Hollow, these books are for you. Book 1 seems super cute and very frustrating, similar to Luke and Lorelai from the Gilmore Girls. Our two main characters are Jeannie and Logan, and they just radiate Lorelai and Luke vibes. I am so excited to read their story. It also takes place in a cute little cafe. Like, come on, perfect for fall time. And the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore obviously takes place and revolves around a bookstore. Our FMC is Hazel in this, and she ends up finding secret notes in a bookstore, and she ends up going to our MMC Noah for help. And what she doesn't know is that Noah has been crushing on her for a super long time. These are just super cutesy, feel-good, fluffy fall romances. I think they're going to be perfect for the month of October and November. And then she's actually coming out with another book called The Christmas Tree Farms, and that's going to be perfect for holiday season and December. I'm super excited to start these, and I feel like it's the perfect time to jump into them. Next, we have Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. This is the Owl Crate Special Edition. I just got it, and I am so obsessed with it. I think it is such a cozy and pretty cover. She's actually a villain created by Shakespeare, and I am so excited to see Ava Reed's take on her and take on her story. She's also the author of A Study in Drowning, which I've briefly talked about on my channel, but that's another really fun and cozy read for fall time. It gives off all the dark academia vibes, and the way that Ava Reed wrote the characters in that story I think was just so beautiful. I feel like she really touched on a lot of important topics. She really pushed the limits on so many things. I think overall she's just an incredible author. I'm super excited to see her take on Lady Macbeth. Next we have A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I am so very excited for this book. I recently went to New York City, and on the plane ride there I started watching the show A Discovery of Witches, and it came out a few years ago, and I remember when it came out I was super intrigued by it. It looked super cool. It was about witches and vampires. It gave off the dark academia vibes because it takes place in Oxford. It looked so cool, but I just never ended up watching it. And then when I was looking for a Netflix show to download for the plane ride, it was the first thing recommended to me. I feel like it's a sign. I feel like I have to download it and watch it. So I watched all of season 1 on the plane, and wow. Wow. I was blown away. It was a show for me that I just immediately became obsessed with, and it's like one of those shows where you want to make it your entire personality, kind of like the Vampire Diaries. That's the same feeling it gave me. So I absolutely loved it. Our FMC is Diana, and she is a witch, but she doesn't really practice at all. She doesn't do spells or casting, anything like that. And then our MMC is Matthew Claremont. He is our neighborhood vampire in Oxford. If you're looking for a really fun fall romance to get lost in, I cannot recommend that show enough. It is absolutely amazing. In the beginning when they meet, they're definitely annoyed with one another. They don't really like one another, but as they kind of end up working together and running into each other, obviously things kind of change. But the main part of it is that they can't be together because species can't mingle with one another. So we get a little bit of a forbidden love in there. The dark academia vibes are incredible because it's taking place in Oxford, and it's just so much fun. All the witchy vampire vibes in this I absolutely love. If you're looking for a series to get lost in the way you get lost in the Vampire Diaries, I could not recommend this enough. Love the show so much that when we got to New York, I immediately went on the hunt to find the book. It took me a while. It was a very hard book to locate, but I did end up getting it, and I am so excited to jump into it. Next we have Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice. This is another book that I had on my September TBR and that I'm just carrying over for October. It's a cutie little YA romance, and it's gonna be perfect for the fall time. It's basically about two rival coffee shops and who can make the best pumpkin spice latte, and the girl who works at the one coffee shop has a crush on the boy that works at the other coffee shop. So I already know it's gonna be a super cheesy, cute little romance. Then we have Butcher and Blackbird. This is another book that I'm carrying over, and it's a book I have heard non-stop good things about. Like, everyone raves about this book. I feel like reading it in October will be really fun because it kind of gives off spooky vibes. I know it's not meant to be like a scary read or anything, but it just gives off spooky vibes. I mean, in the title, Butcher and Blackbird. Spooky. This takes place in Boston though, and I think our two main characters in this are like murders. I don't know. Sounds insane to me, but again, I feel like it's perfect for spooky season. Next up we have Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. This is book 1 in the Vancouver Storm series. I feel like it's perfect time to start jumping back into hockey romances because hockey season has started, and also just going into the chillier months, cozy season. It's just the perfect time to read hockey romances. I'm finally picking this series up. So many of you have recommended it to me. Our two main characters in this are Jamie and Pippa, and basically Jamie is an NHL goalie and Pippa is like his assistant. I hear really good things about this series and Stephanie Archer as a whole, so I'm super excited. And then the final book we have is Juniper Hill by Devney Perry. This was like a last second add-on to my TBR just because this month I'm planning on trying to finish up series I'm in the middle of, so I decided to add this book onto the list because book 1, which is Indigo Ridge, didn't end up being one of my favorite books, so I've kind of shied away from picking up book 2. This is a series I hear really good things about as you kind of go on. I'm really hoping to give book 2 a chance this month, but that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. As always, if you saw any books in today's video that you've read already, definitely let me know down below what you liked, what you disliked, what your rating was, all that good stuff, because I love being up to date on what you guys are liking, what you guys are reading at the moment. I'm very hopeful for the month of October because I usually read the most during cozy season in the fall time. It's finally starting to get a little bit chilly here in Colorado, so really hoping to hunker down this month and do a lot of cozy reading, cozy gaming, all that good stuff. If you have any video ideas that you'd like to see me do in the month of October, definitely leave those down below as well. And with all that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.